My boyfriend moved his homeless friend into my house, and they acted like I was the one squatting, but when I overheard her suggesting he should kick me out, I made her homeless again. So my boyfriend has this friend who moved in 4 months ago because she has nowhere to go. Now, I didn't mind having her as long as she respected our boundaries and the rules around the house, but that's not it. She is very loud, comments on everything, and just does inappropriate stuff in general and excuses it for being a Latina. And that's just how they are. She doesn't help at all besides cooking sometimes but doesn't clean up the mess she makes and invites people over whenever she wants. She changed in the living room in front of us, literally took off her underwear, and I asked her to change in her room but her excuse was that she was trying to feel at home, and then she suggested I should too as it would strengthen my bond with my boyfriend. I talked to my boyfriend about how I'm kinda uncomfortable with this whole situation, and he told me not to overthink it and that she's just very unbothered and cool. She always interrupted our time together and would sit between me during a movie or take my space while I took a toilet break. She cuddled him in the most unfriendly way, and when I asked jokingly if she was trying to take my man, she would excuse it on her ethnicity, and that's how they grew up, so I knew I had to ruin this Friday night they had for them. I went up to them, and she was all over him as usual. I called my boyfriend and when he was about to get up she said how it was their favorite part and that he could leave later. I insisted but she kept pulling him so I went and pulled him to our room. Discussed how what she's doing is really upsetting and I no longer want her living with us and he agreed I had the right but that she has nowhere to go and that I'll have to wait until she finds a job which she's not even trying to get. While talking she came and tried to open the door which was locked so she started knocking and we just ignored her until it got louder and he asked her to leave but she got even louder and then started saying how I ruined the only time there she gets with him. I had enough at that point but my boyfriend suggested he talks to her first so he went and they took too long, like almost 2 hours, and I went to check on them and heard her telling him he shouldn't accept someone who ruins a friendship as a partner and that is a big red flag and that he should kick me out. But this place is actually the property that I inherited from my aunt, and at that point, I knew I had to kick her out. I didn't even ask with what conclusion they came up with and waited in the living room until they came out and I just told her to look for another place and gave her 2 weeks max. She's been crying since yesterday, refusing to eat and not coming out of the room and my boyfriend is saying I went overboard and I just hit a sensitive spot of hers, basically telling her to leave when she has no family or anywhere to go. So am I the a-hole? Update. Apparently I was too blind. Yeah, I guess my boyfriend isn't who I thought he was. He has been trying to give her food, try to calm her down, and took a day off from college and work, which he never did for me and he never even get days off from his classes unless really necessary with proof. I don't know how he managed to get a day off. I really wanted to make sure it is what it looks like before deciding on my next move. I prepared lunch way before time and asked him if he was around for lunch and his response, I'm trying to get her to a breakfast and you're talking about lunch. You're becoming unrecognizable. Yeah, I didn't know what to reply, so just asked again, but he said we could have lunch together if she's willing to join us as it is rude if we eat without her. At this point, I felt like poop, to be honest, and asked him why she was so important that he cancelled all his plans just to support her emotionally, which he never did when I went through things myself, but he just left like that. I invited my guy friend over, who he didn't like, and I explained our situation to him and asked him to be comfortable. I didn't want to do the cuddling stuff like them because we hadn't broken up yet, and it was weird anyway because we don't usually. My boyfriend never realized someone was over until he came to take food and he saw us having lunch together. He just gave me a look, said hi, and was going to take some for themselves until he realized it was a creamy rice casserole and chicken roast with some sides and he literally glared at me and said, you know she doesn't eat that, and I just replied, well it's not her who I made this for. Then he threw the plate, started shouting asking what the F was wrong with me and that he wishes he never dated me. It was so scary my friend got involved. They got aggressive, and I just asked him to leave with his other girlfriend, to which he replied with, oh, so you're replacing me that fast? But I told him he was the one who had replaced me a long time ago, but I was too dumb to realize. He actually moved in fully when his friend came, and colleges here do provide dorms, but of course, it's not like she can live with him, and I couldn't care less anymore. Also, no legal action is required for someone you haven't signed papers with where I live. They were just guests. I packed his things for him, which aren't a lot, and left them by the front door. He came crying and apologizing and acknowledging what he did was wrong and just other bullshit I didn't want to hear because the damage was already done. My friend was of great support, and he dealt with everything else as I cried my eyes out in my room. That sums up how I went through my first heartbreak. It was my first relationship, and I did love him, but I guess I can watch, eat, and do anything now without catering to anyone's needs. I'm changing the locks tomorrow morning, and we're ordering fried chicken. And although her excuse brought up her race, I know better than that.